Yes, setting up the live broadcast. I think we begin in 2 minutes time. I hope many of you will join in your numbers. Let's celebrate World Radio Day and also share some information and some vibes about the book, the radio, and other stories. It's my pleasure to be yours this evening, and yeah, I'm sure we're going to have a great moment together. Yeah, I'm looking forward to a huge crowd being part of this broadcast today. Yes, we already have 2 viewers. Immense. Very punctual members, 3. Wow, Eric Sayani is already there. Eric, welcome from Berlin. Yeah, Eric is tuning in from Berlin. It's my pleasure, Eric. It's been long we've not hooked up. But thanks for being with us this evening. One minute to go. We have 3 viewers with us. Yeah. Wow, my brother from Berlin. Berlin seems to be the the most active caucus today. Valerie McViban, my wonderful friend from Berlin. Yeah, welcome on board. Also, Ankambe alumnus. But not from Nanga, but from Pasasa, PSS. I'm sure we're also going to say something about Pasasa, that wonderful place that molded many of us. Cordelia, great. Oh, Glory. Wow, that's wonderful. Welcome on board, my dear. Nice to have you. Yeah, now we have 8 members. That's quite punctual. I mean, people are very punctual nowadays. We have 8, and I'm sure in some few minutes time, the number is going to really expand. Thanks so much, Cordelia, for joining. Hey, in Samala, the one and only Samala. If there's anyone who has promoted this book even more than the author, it's my man Samala. Welcome on board, bro. Yeah, there's so much to talk about. You are not only one of my greatest promoters, but also someone who is very much connected to the genesis of this book, actually. So, my brother, welcome, and thanks for your continuous support. On est ensemble, as we always say. Are you hearing me correctly? Is it audible? Oh my God, my wonderful friend, brother, benchmate for 7 years, for Festus is there. When I was writing this book, I was like saying, anybody who would really be well placed to understand what I'm talking about in this book is Festus, because I revisited some of our moments in Chipside, in DSide, back then in Njeba. So, great friend, thanks very much, bro. So we have up to 18. The number is really going up. Yeah, Jill, our great ambassador in the Saudi kingdom, is there with us. I also see Emmanuel, time for Emmanuel. My brother and former schoolmate, Prudencia is there. Wow, 20 already. It's going to be a boom today. And let's just enjoy the moment. Where Grandse Comfort is there. Wow, Nabin Kesa is there. One of those who used to really encourage me when I used to post some tidbits of the radio. Yeah, I'm glad that today she has her copy and one of those who tune in grand style. Marina Dej, the greatest promoter of the radio, also at the level of the CRTV. She used all her connections at the CRTV to make sure that the radio, also makes it to the corridors of media power. Ngala, Vincent, thanks very much. Oh, my junior bro, Dr. Ndi is with us. And wow, precious Passi, classmates, wonderful friend, is on board. And also the distributor of the radio in Buea. Yes. Yeah, I think in some few, maybe like in 3 minutes we can start. And please get your comments, get your quotes, favorite clips, because the radio is also a music book. So, yeah, share whatever thing, whatever anecdotes, whatever character is of great interest to you. Share them, keep them coming in the comments box. Yeah, Gillian Kerry, Eric Net, thanks so much. Grandse Ellen Kualar is there with us, elder sister of Kuala Berry. Ramsey Noah, the one whose video tune in gathered the most likes and loves on Facebook. Wonderful, eloquent review of the radio. Thanks very much, Ramsey Noah. Yeah, Tangiri Julius Tawe is with us. Oh my God, my brother is tuning in from Colombia, my second homeland. Jonathan Galvis Christmas. Bienvenido, mi amigo. Estamos en vivo para hablar sobre mi libro, la radio y otras historias, otros cuentos. Muchas gracias. Wow, Grandse. Juliana is on board. Well, Grandse, thanks for coming. Yeah, Tanfo Emmanuel is watching from Yaoundé, the nation's capital, one of the spaces that also feature prominently in the radio, especially in Guayaquil. Yeah. We're going to start maybe in some 3 minutes time. Wow. My one and only sis tuning in from Washington, D.C., Jerry Tracy. Thanks very much, sis, for being on board. Valerie is watching, certainly from Dubai. Wow. The CBC caucus is there. CBC Gambia is one of the places where we used to really go play football and just enjoy our adolescence during Nkambe days. Thanks so much, bro. Wow, Jamita Fari tuning in from Colombia. Wow, my Colombian family is really fully on board today. Yes, Michael Tanjang Temajung, great poet. Wow. One of the winners of our poetry award that we launched last year, and we're still waiting for the results of this year's edition. Mind you, the results will be out very soon. I'm sure he's still going to maintain his position. Wow, Januaro's webcare tuning in from Bamenda, my strong man, right hand man in low on the ground. Thanks so much, Januaros. You've been such a wonderful small brother. Also involved in other projects that are connected to the radio, which I'm going to maybe talk about briefly. Joe Abe, my sister, I remember you from our Wisu days. Welcome on board. And yeah, our number is increasing, and we're gonna start very soon. Invite your friends, share the link. I will be reading the comments box so as to respond to your to any questions or to any point of discussion that you might raise. Yes. Share the link to your friends on your WhatsApp groups and yeah, other Facebook groups too. Evangelist Favor Joy, welcome on board, Evangelist. Wow, Michael is actually tuning in from Romania. The whole world is represented here. That's great, bro. That's great. So I have my monitor here. I'm also looking at the comments so that I don't skip anything. Yes, Linda Dogo-Shang is also watching. I don't know from where, but we shall know it. Irene is watching, certainly from the UK. Miss Wiso, thanks for being on board. Christian Gonzalez from Colombia. Oh my God. My Colombian friends are really on board this evening. And yeah, that's my second country. Wow. Thanks so much, Jerry. Thanks so much, sis. We are together always. Oh, Muchira Wagachenge tuning in from Kenyatta land, from Kenya. He's one of those who actually proofread the book and has also been very much at the forefront in promoting it in Kenya. I don't know whether I should say Kenya is my second country. I mean, I have so many second countries, like my second homelands. That Rufin, wow. Oh, CY is tuning in from Saudi Arabia. Wow, that's great, my bro. Rufin tuning is, I think you're tuning in from Düsseldorf or somewhere in North Rhine-Westphalia in Germany. My able prof, Monkey Uncle Fred, who was not only a good math teacher, but his handwriting was mesmerizing. I remember my elder brother Shankins telling me that, wow, they've had one math teacher, the way he writes on the board, like it's so, yeah. Yolande Bonje, welcome on board. Welcome on board. Wow, Prof. Uncle Fred is tuning in from Bamenda. My man, Yimbo, Dr. Yimbo, Emmanuel Nchia is tuning in from Yaoundé, certainly, or Buea. Welcome on board, my bro. Hey, big bro. Dr. Richard is also tuning in, I think somewhere in Massachusetts. Thanks so much on board for coming on board, and we are going to share some insight into the book. About the radio in general, and also, you know, get behind the scenes with regards to this book. Oh, wow. I can see my sister, Immaculate Sanyu. Wow. Tam Polycarp also on board from Stuttgart, member of the Parliament of Aristocrats and Galaxy. Celestine Nfor is on board, my classmate and brother, Joyce Abla Mimi, one of the greatest promoters of this book also. Wow. It's going to be hot this evening, and yeah, really pleased and humbled to have you on board. Yeah. Charles, yes, my junior bro, tuning in from Yaoundé. Willie Lerena, certainly from Peru, one of my second countries again. I always say Peru is my first love in Latin America, even though I've gotten to stay for a longer period in Colombia, but Peru was really my first love in that part of the world. And yes, my guess was right. So Dr. Richard Tanto is tuning in from Massachusetts. Welcome on board, big bro. My man, someone I called my treasurer during my Jibetes Gambe days, Jibero. Njeba, my man, who has been so hospitable to me during my trips in the Obama land, is there. So the number is growing and growing. I think we can begin now. Yes. I just want to share some few greetings and also comments and some few thoughts about the radio before we then get into the heart of the matter. Of course, it's not a one-man show. I just want you to share your moments, you know, your experience with the radio, with the book, The Radio, your quote, your favorite quote, favorite anecdote from that book. And yes, I also want maybe to share with you some of the projects that are related to this book. It's a book, but then it also led to a lot of other projects, and I want to share this with my audience. My brother and writer friend Zamala has always encouraged me to share these stories that they might motivate one or two persons. So yes. So we're gonna start. I will start by apologizing for the mix-up last week, as we would say in Cameroonian political parlance. There was a glissement here with regard to our broadcast. Maybe the forces that be in Cameroon did not want us to do the broadcast on the same day as the birthday of our head of state, but yes, we had to postpone because there was an issue with viewer accessibility. My elder brother is on board, Sean Kingsley, tuning in from Douala, my brother and my mentor at the same time. I always say if I failed in secondary school, he would have been responsible for that, and if I succeeded, then he would also be, he would also get the praise. I really came to secondary school under his wings. Yes, thanks so much, bro, for being there for your junior man. Ngala Busy Brain is there on board. So thanks very much for coming. Thanks very much for coming. And yes, the rescheduled Facebook Live is now ongoing. Please share in your WhatsApp groups, share in your Facebook groups. Now, we scheduled this as a means of celebrating the World Radio Day, which has been instituted by the UNESCO for over, I think this is its 12th edition. It's on the 13th of February. That's why we had to do this live show on the 13th of this month. But then it's a week-long series of activities, so we still celebrate even today. Why the radio? And the theme for this year's edition is Radio and Peace. The importance of the radio in passing across messages of peace, and in building a culture of peace. And we all know that the radio has been quite dominant, in the whole I think 20th century. The history of the radio dates back to the very beginning of the 20th century, and for the greater part of that century, the radio was the most accessible means of communication. Of information spreading at a very global level. The TV came in much later, as I talk about in the book. In my own community, we had the first TV sets in the early 80s. Maybe those who come from the coast, perhaps maybe in the 70s, they already could procure a TV set. But the radio has been there all along, throughout much of the 20th century. And the theme for this year is radio and peace. Radio in contributing to peaceful relations at the global as well as the local level. And I must say also that in the late 20th century, there was this boom also of community radio stations. And so the importance of this community radio in building a culture of peace is quite important. We know that the reality is a bit grim, and that the radio has also been used in some circumstances also as a tool of propaganda. We know of the Radio Mille Collines, which was a major tool also in promoting hate speech in Rwanda that led to the killing of Tutsis and moderate Hutus. So this is a wish that the radio should continue to be a medium of peace and harmony at a very global level. Why the radio? The radio, maybe some people are even saying that the radio is outdated. Some claim that it's outdated, but it's not the case. The radio just refuses to go away. It's been there for the greater part of the 20th century. It's still there, and it's still a major means of communication, major source of information for a greater part of humanity. We know that even when we talk of the internet age, not many people have access to the internet, and so for a greater part of humanity, the radio still remains the main source of information, and quite accessible. It's also, of course, much easier to procure for yourself a radio set, transistor radio, than maybe to have it to procure a smartphone or maybe a TV. So it's still a much more affordable means of sourcing information. Another aspect of the radio that also makes it quite important, that still underlines the pertinence of the radio, is the fact that it's quite dynamic. It has been able to adapt, even within this era of global social media and new means of communication and information. Now we can actually listen to the radio through Facebook. You actually watch journalists in the studio broadcasting. So the radio has so many facets and has been able to really adapt, to modern technology. And there's also something quite magnetic about the voice. The fact that unlike TV, where you really face the journalists, it's quite TV is quite prosaic. You watch journalists on TV, you see the images of the themes that the issues that they are reporting on. The radio gives you a certain allowance for imagination, for imagination. I remember, when we used to hear names of some of our, most, some of the prominent names in radio broadcasts, you never even knew how they looked like in real life. And sometimes when you finally meet the person, you cannot match the voice, that affective voice, that authoritative voice with the person that is standing in front of you. So radio journalists, radio broadcasters remain some sort of a myth to many of us, and we're yearning to know how they looked like. I remember in my early days in Guayaquil, I used to go to the British Council to read the Focus on Africa magazine, and it was quite interesting for me to really get into the life stories, see images of people like Togo Ndoro, Maureen Kandumandeya, Peter Okoche, Komla Domo, Robin White, BBC Network Africa. So these people, we never even knew how they looked like, So there's always that kind of myth that accompanies radio journalists. Many people don't even know up to today how Zakarinko looks like, but the way he conveyed matches through the radio, we were like, wow. And when you look at the guy, he's young, quite, modest guy, but the authoritativeness of his voice. So that's what I think also makes the radio quite an effective mode of communication and of broadcast. There's also this dimension of the radio that, unlike the TV where you have to be yoked in front of your screen, the radio, you can follow it passively. And when I say passively, it doesn't mean that it is less engaging. You can be doing laundry or eating, and you are following the radio, and somewhat the radio comes to live with you, to really simmer into your consciousness, and you come to have a relationship, to build a relationship with the radio, with that medium of the radio. So the radio still remains a very important broadcast tool. Now, why did I title this book, The Radio and Other Stories? That is a question that I think is on the minds of most of you. Why the radio and other stories? Of course, I actually toyed with a lot of ideas for the title. It was not easy to come out with a title that was satisfactory to both to my publisher and to myself. So I had a kind of like to and froing with regards to finding the right title for this book. And I began with titles such as The Archaeology of the Self. But I said, okay, this book it's about the self, but it's not about the self, because I'm thinking more about the collective self. So, yes, so I was like, okay, let me not make it to be so personal. So I struck that off. Then at some point also I had the title that I think stayed with me for a much longer time, was 35 Years of Solitude. I was about 35 when I began writing, I think the major part of this book. So there's this great book by a Colombian author, 100 Years of Solitude. It's a kind of canon, it's a classical text, very interesting book, and the way he looks at solitude in a very complex manner. So I toyed with the idea of maybe, some sort of parodying that title for my own book. But I said maybe the common man would not understand the complex meaning of solitude, which might sound as something very negative, you know. So I didn't want the book to look so solemn and solitary, because I wanted to capture both sides of life. So I struck that off. And yes, what other title did I think of? At some point, I was even thinking of Buea's children, or I think something like New Deal children or something, because I wanted to write a book that some sort of captures the experience of maybe young Cameroonians, young in quote, born around early 80s, mid 80s, and who have particular trajectories linked to the ups and downs of the current regime. And because it means that those who were born in the early 80s, mid 80s, have known only one head of state, you know, throughout their lives. We are now bearded, and some with even elements of white beards already shooting, but still we know only one head of. So I wanted to capture the book as a kind of zeitgeist, what is in German, which would mean something like the spirit of the time, you know, the trajectory of that generation of Cameroonians. But then why did I land on the title, The Radio and Other Stories? Simply because the first story that I wrote in this book actually is the title story, The Radio. And so it's what set the whole collection going, you know. So I thought this story plays a very prominent role, and that's why it also comes first in the collection. So I thought maybe the radio and other stories could be a good medium, or a good title for this book. So, but also because the radio stands there as an epitome of means of communication. Because as I was writing this book, I wanted to also do a kind of historiography or archaeology of communication technology. That's why I talk so much about the mobile phone, the record player, the radio, the TV, and all of that. And I wanted to like trace the historiography of this media of communication through this book. I also talk about letter writing. You know, remember those days when letter writing was the only source of, you know, of communication in terms of, you know, person-to-person communication. But now this seems like like myth to the ears of the younger generation, where, you know, people send text messages. Those ones are even outdated now. Now it's more about Facebook, Instagram, and all the like. But think about epistolary, like when you used to write letters to your loved ones, to your girlfriends, to declare love, you know, and all of that. So I talk about this in the book. So I wanted this book to really be like also a kind of archiving of the development of information and communication technology. So the radio then stands more as a metaphor, you know, of other means of communication. And so, yes, so those are some of the reasons why I finally landed on the radio. And it made sense because when the book came out, then we used this tag, tuning into the radio, and it worked so well. Everyone wanted to tune in from, you know, from various locations. And that worked so well also as kind of advertisement, you know, strategy. Yeah, so that it was really timely. And my publisher was really, really, wow, you thought it well. And yeah, so it worked quite well. And yeah, so what else should I share about this book? Many of you are wondering what really gave the spark to this book, or what were my motives for writing this book. It's difficult to say. A book has, you know, several lives, and it's difficult to pin down one reason as the major reason for writing a particular book. There is a panorama of reasons. Yes, so I would just name a few. This book came about, or the first impulse came when I went to Cameroon 2014 after my PhD defense, and I wanted to just go home and, walk down memory lane and visit some of the spaces that some sort of shaped me intellectually, but also emotionally. So I went home, and when I reached my alma mater, GBHS Nkambe, met the principal, met his vice, met the staff and the students. I was like, a certain wave of nostalgia came over me, and I was like, oh my God, do these young ones know that there was once Sango, the handball player? Do they know that there was once Tamfu Harrison, in this school? Do they know that there was once Dr. Sunjo Fabian in this school? And do they know that there was Famatanto in this school, and that their baby steps began on this very campus? And I was like, okay, why not just write a story that would really capture this metamorphosis, this modest beginnings? Because I wanted to write a book that was not about me. It was not really not just about me, but also about the community, like the collective self, not about the individual self, but about the collective self. So I wanted to write something that would capture, and also inform the current generation about the memories of the past. One thing that also made me to write was the fact that when I went home after defending my PhD, there was some sort of social distancing. When you go meet a friend and then he starts calling you doctor, and there was some sort of, I felt a bit estranged that my close friends were referring to me as doctor. Like, of course I was doctor, but it wasn't like the most prominent aspect of myself. I wanted just to relate and to, to reconnect with people, to share with them, share their stories. But when they started calling me doctor, I was like, I felt a bit like there was some sort of a kind of gap, because they're like, okay, this guy is coming from Europe, he has got his PhD, perhaps he's normal. Yeah. So some people even predicted that maybe I might start, raising shoulders up, and maybe, but that was not me, and that is not me. Rather, I wanted just to relate and recall where I come from, and just be me. We keep the titles for the academia, but when we are with friends, we are just ourselves. We remember our, modest days. We remember our days in primary school, Cheapside, the difficulties we went through, moments of joy. So I just wanted to write this story to say, this is where I am coming from. And where I'm coming from is not only about a personal story, it's a story that connects with other people, And so it was also, this book was also a way of relating. And those who have lived abroad know that it can be a very difficult experience, emotional experience, because you are disconnected from a lot of things, from your favorite meals. There are meals from my ethnic group that I've totally lost track of, and so things that really my most delicious dishes, I've lost track. I've not eaten parched corn for I don't know for how many years now. So writing and remembering these things was quite important for me. It was also a way of trying to make up for that loss, and to reconnect with my roots, as some would put it. So, but also I think another click that really encouraged me to write this book was my friend and junior brother, Dr. Kenneth Nsamala, an established author, poet, who back, I think 2014, sent a book to me, a manuscript of his book, Do You Know Mbesa? Kenneth Nsamala is from Mbesa, and he has done a lot to promote, the culture of his people. And Nsamala came to visit me here 2015. And when I told him I was actually already writing my other book, Letter from America, which is a more historical book, still a narrative, but more historical. Yes. And so when I read Nsamala's book, in which he was promoting the culture, a culture of his people, telling us about the you know, like the various aspects of social life in Besa. I said, oh, maybe I should really do something also for my community, the Mbum community, and now more in the form of a narrative. Yeah, so I would say Samala was a strong force, and he's still a very good friend of mine. We exchange a lot. I call him the adopted son of Lo. Yeah, so that's one of the things that really gave, you know, that desire a push, that really put me, you know, on the track of effectively writing this book. And yes, the other relations that the other connection that I want to make is the connection that exists between the radio and other stories and my first book that was published in 2019, Letter from America. Letter from America is about me, you know, visiting Latin America for the very first time and trying to reconnect with my roots, you know, exploring African culture in the diaspora, and trying to, you know, meeting people who are quite curious about Africa. They ask you 1,000 questions just to know about how life is on the continent. And so I was there, and each time I saw them, there's one phenomenon that I always say: when I see somebody in Latin America in particular, you know, a black person, I always have a double on the continent. I always see somebody who looks exactly like, you know, so that sense of brotherhood that lives in our DNA as the African diaspora is very strong. So I was writing that book to connect, you know, diasporic culture with the root culture on the continent. And so the radio and other stories is like the reverse, in the sense that this is a son of the soil going home. This is a kind of homecoming. The book is actually a homecoming, going home and meeting some of the people that shaped his life, some of the spaces that molded him. And also, you know, but there's also a sense of estrangement, because you are going to places that have not remained the same, that have also been transformed across time. And there's also the element of loss. You go to places where, which remind you of certain people who are no more, who have passed on. And so there's also that element of loss. And I think you read it, you know, in so many chapters in the book. So yes, so this was also one of the motives for me to write the book. Yeah, so what else can I say as background? Now, before I start maybe responding to your, I don't know, questions, I would also say that the radio and other stories has given birth to a number of projects, modest, but in Samala, my friend would always encourage me to share them. I would say that, yes, when I wrote this book, I used to share tidbits of the book on social media, and, you know, people commented and added their own Maggie to the stories. And one day I posted an image of my primary school teacher, Pa Amos, and my former lecturer, Professor Atechi Samuel, great professor, my lecturer, but now my friend. Saw the picture, and you know, when you see a picture on social media, the first thing that comes to you, especially if the person looks a bit, you know, advanced in age, the first thing you think maybe, you know, it's gone. Especially when it's in form of a kind of tribute. The first thing you would think maybe the person has, you know, has passed away. So he wrote under the picture as comment, RIP, and said, what a great loss. And so I had to comment very fast. I said, no, Prof, he's not dead. It was on World Mother Tongue Day. And I shared an experience of how Pa Amos would teach us and use Limbo to illustrate, tell us stories about Athens, you know, Sparta and Athens, and tell them to us, you know, tell them in Limbo, and we understood much better, you know, when he narrated them in Limbo. So I had to write Prof and said, no, Prof, he's not dead, he's alive. I just wanted to share this experience. And then Prof and I started discussing inbox, and Prof said, we need to do something for this man. We need to do something. I said, okay, Prof, yeah. So I discussed with Prof and one of my brothers from my village, Charles, for Charles, I'm sure he's here with us watching. I said, okay, maybe I should create a WhatsApp group just to because yes, we discovered that where Pa Amos, who was taught in that primary school from 1990 till when the crisis interrupted everything, he was living in a space that was really not very dignified. So yes, so we sent Januaros, who is here watching, to go and check and really see where Pa is living. We did an initial contribution of just amongst the alumni of that school. We contributed some money and handed to Pa as appreciation. But when Januaros went and saw where Pa was living, we said, no, this is not really so dignified. Yeah, so we should do something more. So Prophet Techi again, who had contributed, for that gesture, again still said, no, we need now to build a house for Pa or to renovate his house. So yes, so I created another group. We raised about 2 million something, and we put up a structure for Pa Amos. Yes, so Pa Amos was in tears. He didn't know what to say. He was really, really, really thankful. And yes, he said we've buried him, already. So yeah, so I'm quite grateful that the little gesture went ahead to really transform his life. And yeah, so we got really great feedback also from people who never even knew. Prophet Techi has never been to Lo. He has never been anywhere, even in Donga Mountain, but he took that as a personal project and really, really, really championed it. And so that's one of the modest gestures that came out of that of this book. Another gesture has to do with Richard Nyaminfo, whom I talk about so much in the book. If you remember the burial conductor, who was at the same time the song leader of the English choir. At the same time, he was a seasoned goalkeeper in his heydays, early 90s. Then became a referee. I put up something on Facebook when I was celebrating the birthday of Pierluigi, the Italian referee, Pierluigi Collina, and I went ahead to tell the story of our own Collina, Richard Nyaminfo, who was a marathon runner, who was a sprinter, who was so many things, who was a chief whip in most of the meetings in my community, and one of the most, the first hybrid human in terms of, mixing or living, both the Christian culture and the African culture. And at the time, it was frowned at, when syncretism was really looked at quite negatively, at some of our local churches. But Richard Nyaminfo was he saw ahead of time. And so at some point, he was sick. So I set up a WhatsApp group, and we raised some money and took him to the hospital. He got some treatment. But unfortunately, Richard passed on, but he lives in this book. If you read this book, I think that's one of the people that I've really dedicated space to, because he was really, a man ahead of his time in so many ways. Now, yes, one other project that has come out of this book is the whole culture of self-writing. From this book, I developed a project on self-writing, memoir writing, autobiographical writing, which I applied in Colombia, in the western part of Colombia, where you have the most sizable Afro-descendant community. And so I organized workshops based on African literature as a source of empowerment. I titled that workshop Maneno ya Kuwezesha in Swahili, which means words that empower, where I treated works by Ngugi wa Thiong'o, by Chimamanda, Chinua Achebe, Trevor Noah's memoir, for example. And yes, but at the end of it, I used the style that I use in my memoir, The Radio and Other Stories, in that book, The Radio and Other Stories. To trigger, I would ask them to identify one particular object that really, make them think of their past and their trajectory. The same way I do in the radio, where the radio sets me on a memory lane, so I used that same kind of trick in Colombia, and that led to a collection of stories with young Afro-Colombians telling their life stories. And in that context, it's quite precise because it's a context where to be African is to be considered inferior. So they use that method to tell their stories and to, you know, to combat racism, you know, through writing. So the force of writing in deconstructing, you know, racial prejudices. So that is one of the book came out. Unfortunately, I don't have a copy here. It's in the office. Yes. So, and currently we are still doing some projects also in Colombia and Brazil, still based on self-writing. I will be in Brazil, I think in April for the last workshop in this light. And certainly another collection will come out of that. Yes, so that's one of those are some of the fruits that I can connect to the radio as, you know, as a book. And yes, one of the stories in the radio, the story of late Dr. Nfor, features prominently. You know, it's one of the most prominent stories in the collection, maybe the saddest, as some would say. But I wanted to, you know, to project the life of Dr. Nfor, who was the first person to have a PhD in my community, and who bore the hopes of the entire community, but unfortunately had passed away 6 months after defending his PhD in Wayne State University, Detroit, in the US. So I wanted to capture the trauma caused by the death of Dr. Nfor, and to, you know, to project his life, because he was quite an example, one of the most bilingual Cameroonians, you know, in that era. He was of the 1963 batch of Joseph Merrick Baptist College, Ndu. And so I wrote this chapter in the radio about him, and then went ahead to presently we are working on a documentary where we actually interview those who knew Dr. Nfor, and who would share testimonies about their times in JMB Ndu, to throw light on what it meant to study from the primary school, secondary, university at that time. And I must again express my thanks to many of you here with us who participated in that documentary, who helped me carry out the interviews of some of the classmates of Dr. Nfor who are based, you know, in all the four corners of the world. Thanks very much, yeah, for your input. Yeah, I think those are some of the things that I wanted to share with you. Yes, about this project. And if you've been following my Facebook page, you've maybe seen me sharing you know, elements of a video series that I did also on primary education in the 40s, 50s and 60s in Donga and to an extent also northwest Cameroon. So yes, those videos are available on YouTube, and you can access them at any moment. The Long Walk to School, that's the title. Okay, I will stop here and then just maybe is Nfor Masanji. No, that's Dr. Nfor. I think I had to contact Nfor Masanji, who is, I think, based in the US. No, and who also passed on. No, that's not the one I'm talking about. They just have a coincidence of names. Yes, Nfor Stephen. Yes, I'm aware that Nfor Masanji passed on lately. Okay, so I will be checking now your comments. I don't know if anybody shared anything. Let me looking at monitoring the screen. Okay, let me see. Okay, yeah, so if you have any questions, please keep them coming. I'm now just focusing on your comments and your, yes, just, okay, yeah, so if you have any questions, yes. So, and I also want to encourage those who have the book maybe to share some of their favorite quotes. Yes, yes, thanks so much, Ramsey. Long walks to school, quite an eye-opener from humble backgrounds to greatness. Thanks so much, yes. And it's quite interesting because the feedback that I've gotten from that video series is quite interesting. You know, video culture is not very much something we are used to. So most of our people back home have, you know, they feature on virtually on no video footage anywhere. So the testimony I want to share is that, I mean, many people had to, I mean, really wrote me inbox. Some of those whom I interviewed in that series, unfortunately passed on because, you know, we're talking about a generation that went to primary school in the 40s and 50s. So people like Pam Fogwe passed on, Reverend Bumwe passed on, and for a number of them, the families reached out to me, you know, when I told them that I had videos, you know, of their life, and it happened that was the only video that maybe they had of their, in some cases, you know, of their departed one. So yeah, so documenting this life is quite important. Something that really bothers me is when I look, maybe I look up for something on Wikipedia and maybe YouTube. Yeah, those who dominate, of course, is the Western world. You know, any Tom and Dick in the Western world is on Wikipedia, but our people, those who have done marvelous things in our community, don't have footprints on the internet. So I thought also that when I write this book and maybe do this project, I'm also like, you know, projecting these lives, and yes, to make them visible. Okay, yes, in Samala, connections between the radio and Letter from America. Yes, how the radio keeps or could keep some of your family memories alive. Yes. You are very right, Samala. You know, it's when I embarked on writing this book that I had to interview my own dad, and my own mom about their lives. Sometimes we think that we know so much about our parents, but we don't know anything. So I discovered that, I mean, all what I thought about my father's primary school life, even where he did his primary school, was false until I had to interview him when I was writing the radio, and then he corrected me about his trajectory. So in a way, also the radio was a way also of you know, archiving the family line in a way, memories of the family, as you would say. And so one other aspect is Lake Nyos, the Lake Nyos disaster, and I knew very well that my dad was a primary school teacher in Subum within the perimeter of Lake Nyos, and left Lake Nyos just, I think, 4 years before the tragedy occurred in 1986. So, and he had told me, he and my mom had told us a bit about their lives there. And when I was writing this book, I needed to you know, interview them again to know in what way that tragedy is reflected in our lives. And yeah, so my dad lost a lot of friends in Lake Nyos. And I remember in our family album, we had a picture of my dad when he visited Lake Nyos after the tragedy. He had lost his friends, his colleagues who had remained in the school, yeah, were no more. And it might happen that the young man who is talking to you now was conceived in the Nyos area, and it's thanks to my mom who kept telling my dad that the climate was not very conducive for my elderly siblings, and so that's how they had to they got also a transfer and left Subum, you know, the Nyos area, 4 years before the tragedy occurred. So this is how I try to connect also personal lives with collective trauma, also in the book. Yes. Oh yes, Prof. Uncle Fred, in the chapter of the church, how comes Pa Alaji, a Muslim, has a daughter called Mary? Absolutely right, Prof. We know the level of interculturality in our local context. And yes, actually, and this is a real story. I think Pa converted to Islam also, you know, at a later stage. So he was not a Muslim from birth, so he converted at a later stage. So his daughter called Mary. And that's the question that one of our, I think, viewers here, Dr. Njeba, asked me, because there's also this story about the Mbororo community, where one Mbororo boy is called John. And he also asked me, how come a Mbororo boy is called John? This is just the way it is. And yes, so one is called John, one is called Fanta. I think most of you have read like the very the story about Fanta in the story in the collection, and many of you had like questions to me in the background about what happened with Fanta. Yeah, story for another day. If only our childhood icons could be identified and brought to light in this peculiar manner, would never stop. Yeah, thanks so much. That we would never stop writing. Great comments. Yeah. So Dr. Emmanuel Akangwa, my Niger bro. Amazing, so nice hearing the voice and echoes from the radio, watching from Maryland. Thanks so much, bro, and thanks for the interview that you did with me on the radio. Yes, my roommates and friends for life, Tabo Jedone, whom we called Drogba, someone who knows my love for the radio. He was we were roommates in Guayaquil, Carrefour Camine. And he just had to bear me, because he just had to just to bear, because I was sleeping with the radio on BBC, was always on Focus on Africa, Network Africa, and so yeah, very tolerant guy, really. I mean, so he knew that was my addiction and just embraced me with all my so. Oh yeah, so thanks so much, dear, and for the beautiful moments we live together now on Guayaquil days. And I don't know, maybe I should also read some passages if you wish, maybe two passages or so, while I also stay tuned for your comments, of course. I don't know which ones to read. I always get this confusion because yeah. Even as the author of the book, I actually have so many favorite stories. Maybe, where should I? In the chapter on the Nanga Hills, that's my alma mater, I zoom in on the number of communities that constituted the high school population. And I talk about the students from Binka, students from Tabikane, students from Binju, and so maybe I should read something linked to Binju. I see a lot of Binju friends here online. Yes. Oh yeah, my right-hand person, Bongbimi Jill, deep in the mind of every Binka made was okay. Yes, Sirla. Okay, maybe I should. Okay, so I will start with Binjo and maybe do Binka too. Okay, page 235. Okay, I'm reading from page 235, NIV version. Sorry, it's just. You took the shortcut from Cheapside to the main road leading to Binju. It was a famous path used by dodgers. At the road junction, opposite the entrance to the Government Technical High School, you found a motorcyclist who transported you through Binju to the central town. A great percentage of the student population of GBHS Nkambe resided in Binju. Binju was not only a locality, or location. Those who lived in Binju were bound together by an incredible social glue and social dynamic that was beyond the compunction of some of you who lived in town. For these students, the socialization that took place on campus always seemed supplementary, for a prior social cementing had already taken place in Binju. They seemed to enjoy many common references, and given that it was the administrative headquarters, Binju schoolmates had a better mastery of who was who in town and on campus in terms of social status. They would say, "Don't you know that so and so is the son or daughter of the state council, magistrate, director?" A girl from Binju was always already occupied before one even thought of anything. Just like the case with Binka, one could not put asunder what Binju had sealed together. Otherwise, it could only be untied in Binju and by a fellow Binjuan. More than solidarity, Binju mates shared a certain sense of complicity and even conspiracy. It seemed that whenever they took the gravel road to Binju after school hours, a sense of community was formed which bonded them in a unique and a very interrelated mindset. And it was very striking that non-Gambe and non-Bom students entered that social network with enormous ease. As such, Binju welcomed and integrated everyone, despite their ethnic backgrounds. One just needed the rightful Darwinist instincts to assert themselves in that space. Students from other ethnic groups usually talked about Binju in hindsight and nostalgia, as if Nkambe was part of Binju and not the other way around. To cap it all, some of them ended up speaking Limbum more fluently than Limbum mother tongue speakers. I have a lot of friends who lived in Binju who speak perfect Limbum today, just to show you how the social cementing. So Binju is a good example of what we call le vivre ensemble in Cameroon. And so now Binka, let me talk about Binka, a place to be, page 198. Okay, I zoom in on how we used to spend our free periods in early secondary school. Some of the best stories during free periods were told by your mates from Binka, a village close to Nkambe town. When you say village, you mean to be provocative, for the inhabitants silently shunned the appellation of their locality as a village. Deep in the mind of every Binka mate was the belief that their place of origin was, in reality, a city. They referred to their home as Sirla, meaning a horizontally located home, supposing the common reference to an easily identifiable communal text or spirit, and their familiarity with a specific space of provenance. Most of their stories centered on the great football trio, the 3R, Rahim, Rogers, and Roland, as well as one Pa Alinga Abiri, a veritable trickster. During interquarters football competition in Binka, Pa Alinga Abiri would give the same type of performance-enhancing amulet to competing football teams, accounting for the tough finals that used to transfix the entire Binka in those days. As the games prolonged into extra time and penalty shootout outside the pitch, Pa Alinga Abiri would be engaged in supplementary negotiations with covert officials of both teams, and only the highest bidder would finally carry the day. The most interesting one was the claim that Pa Alinga Abiri had invited the Ngwarong of Binka to his home and gave them a treat. However, as the Ngwarong left his compound full of gratitude, Pa Ali sang his incantations in a farewell to the August Secret Society, revealing that the sumptuous meal they had just eaten was made of the flesh of a pied crow, what we call in Limbo, kanko, an otherwise inedible bird with black feathers and white silk lapel, similar to the uniform of Baptist women's choir groups in your area. Great. So, at the passage in the University of Yaoundé, one cannot be underestimated. It appears to be a community in its own right, irrespective of one's time spent there. Thanks very much, Immaculate. That brings, okay, then it means I should read something from that, that's the chapter on the shoes. The chapter on the shoes, yeah, on the shoe, that's okay. Just to say that, I mean, a lot of people have asked me, as people often ask authors, which is the best story, in my own estimation as the author. Difficult to say, because each story, has its own peculiarity. And the entire book for me was quite, it took me some time to write, because I was trying to look for the right rhythm, for the right perspective, because it's a book that was, for me, it was not only about what, it was not about the what, but the how. How do I write about these things? Mind you, some of the passages are quite sad. And I was like, let me not trivialize or bring humor, unnecessary humor, where it is not really expedient, and humor might be out of place, because in some of the chapters, as you see, it's also about loss, it's about trauma. So it took me some time to really find the right rhythm, the right frame in which to really put these stories. Now, if you look at the story on the 6th June massacre in Ndu, 1992, it's a story of pain, of the violence, political violence in Cameroon at the dawn of multipartyism. So I was not in Ndu. Many of you, a number of you who are here come from Ndu. Bon, ici Jill is there. I think a number of you actually, even I can see my brother. Tarlusi, Tando, he's here. These are people who lived, that tragedy in Ndu. And I wasn't there, but then I lived it from the sidelines, coming from Lo, some few kilometers from Ndu. So I had to find a way of telling the story from a childhood mindset, how that tragedy came to us as kids at the periphery of Ndu. We who had a particular image of Ndu as a place where your mother would use Ndu to discipline you. I mean, say, if you behave this way, if you pass well, then she would take you to Ndu and maybe buy you something from Ndu. So Ndu, as I say in the book, was for us, it stood for modernity. For all that which was enlightened. But then the experience of political violence in 1992 changed that perspective altogether. So I had to tell the story from a childhood perspective. How did we perceive that tragedy as children? So these are parts of the book that I had to write and rewrite, just to find the right tone, the right tone. The radio and other stories, as Nsamala paints it in his review, is the radio of life, the fortunate and unfortunate circumstances of life, the joys and the tragedies of life. And I end with a quote: when something happens, something else happens. So our lives are jostled, between these two sides, and there's no room for extreme sadness as well as extreme joy. There's always something that would bring you hope, even in times of joy, and there's always something that would guard you against excessive joy. So this book I wanted to bring this together. So coming back to the story on the shoe, this is where I thought that I succeeded, because I wanted to capture the tragicomic, dimension of life. And so the shoe story for me took me also some time to write, because I was looking for this rhythm, the right rhythm and the right tone. And yes, so the shoe, I'm someone who is very particular about the shoes that people wear. Sometimes I remember shoes and forget the faces, because we come from the generation where we used to say the shoe make a man. We used to go extra miles to get, some of the shoes that were in fashion at the time, John Goodacre, Boution's, Mercury, you know, and all that, you know. So shoes mean a lot to me, and there are a lot of classmates that I remember due to the kind of shoes that they used to wear, you know. So yes. So let me read something from a passage from the story, The Shoe. Okay, that's 28. Okay, yeah, I don't want to give a long introduction, just that something happens, and then on the campus, Ngwaikele campus, and then we're fighting for something. Don't ask me for what. We were fighting for something, but then the battle was lost, and we had to return to our various homes with unfulfilled desires. So let me share just a very brief passage from this. You began the long march home with a heavy heart, sobbing to yourself. Your home, or rather your room, was not far from the campus. Nevertheless, homecoming was the great trek. Matters we met was by a vexing drizzle. You removed the sock from your right foot and pocketed it while holding part of the shoe in your right hand, making sure that it did not come close to your black shirt. At some point, you felt like throwing the shoe into the surrounding thicket, but then you looked at its brother, seemingly very strong, and you consoled yourself that the right foot could be repaired subsequently. You made sure you put the pressure of your gait on the left foot, the shoed one, to lessen the burden on your right foot. The precaution did not help much, and as you walked down the road, you recalled the eloquent statement by the Minister of Higher Education, Jacques Famindongo, a veritable wordsmith, speechifying during the conferral of the doctoris honoris causa to Abdou Diouf, then Secretary General of La Francophonie by the University of Yaoundé 1. And this is what Famindongo said on that occasion. Welcome to the citadel of science, where every gravel on the Ngwaikele hill is a crystal of knowledge. That was true, but the gravel meant nothing abstract or metaphorical to you as you trekked home. It was concrete reality. Okay, those who want to know more about this story should read more. This is the story that most of my Ngwaikele friends have written to me to say you captured really. It might have been your story, but this is also like a collective story. And yes, so yeah, which one? I think maybe I do some two more, and then and then maybe I just read your comments and questions. Keep sharing your post, your favorite quotes, anecdotes, characters from the book. And yeah, so let me read something from from the chapter on the church, page 141. Okay. Or rather page 144. I think I would preferably read 144. Yeah, sometimes when in this social media age, we've tended to banalize certain things that were quite serious in our days. Nowadays, it's quite easy to see somebody, I'm born again, just throw it there. You can, everybody can quote the Bible now. It's so easy, accessible. You just go to Google and then copy and paste, and yeah, it's becoming sexy to say I'm born again. It's a new form of gospel, like prosperity gospel too, has mingled with it. And so it's becoming quite sexy. But in our days, when we were in secondary school, it wasn't that easy. I mean, it was a fundamentally existentialist question. When someone asked you in Njeba in Kambe, are you born again? I know Nshukwi Patience is here watching. So, my sister in Christ. So it was a fundamental question to which one needed the right answer. And when you said you were born again, you needed then to share your down the road to Damascus experience. How did it happen? And so those defining years in the run up to the year 2000, you know, these were years that some religious denominations predicted as the final days, the second coming of Christ. So I tried to capture this moment as we lived it in Kambe, in Du, in my village Lo. So let me read. Evangelization was yielding fruit as God was turning Baptist church Christians into veritable fishers of men from every hidden corner of the village. People who had never been to church in their lifetime became the earliest birds to the daily church service, with Bibles of various sizes and shapes clutched to their armpits. In those final days, certain expressions changed from "Are you born again?" to "Where will you spend eternity?" and "What is your salvation testimony?" From the near romantic and nostalgic second coming to the more foreboding rapture. I still fear that word rapture. The word rapture, though signifying the rising into heaven of the righteous with Christ, also expressed the tragic connotation of the encounter with Christ, especially for those not spiritually prepared. Rapture was most especially used at the approach of the year 2000, which was believed by many to be the end of the world. When the mysterious year of rapture came and passed, some kept their faith while others lost steam and went back to their old ways. Elsewhere, things were even more dramatic. At the dawn of the 1st of January 2000, news came that there was shortage of beer and sha, corn beer, in Kambe and Du, as makeshift converts in the world woke up in total disbelief to the bittersweet experience of post-rapturous life, to the tragedies and redemption of everyday life. It never happened. Some kept their faith, some lost steam. Fair weather Christians lost steam and went back to their old ways. Maybe the last passage before we, before maybe I just read some of the comments and then we, Okay. Which one should I read now? Okay, maybe fringes. Okay, I think I should read two last for some of you who are still on late, because there are some passages that I really plan to read. So I will read two last. I will read one passage from the fringes that's about the Mbororo community in my village. That's page 149. Okay, page 149. Those who have been questioning me on Fanta and asking me to tell the real story, please. So I just wanted to share this to you. Most Mbororo families lived in scattered settlements on the flanks of the Ka mountain on the eastern border of your village with Kuflo, which belongs to the Nfor ethnic group. They would lease some small portions of cow dung field land to the village women for the cultivation of fresh huckleberry. The huckleberry cultivated on such lands had a peculiar taste. It was commonly called Njeba. That's huckleberry cultivated on cow dung manure. Your mom also had a small portion of land offered to her by Mami Fanta. Your mom, yeah, Fanta was a cute Mbororo girl, and most of the young boys from your village died of admiration for her. Like most Mbororo girls, she was always in seamlessly fitting English wax wrappers, blouse and headscarf of the same fabric and color. Her wrists were full of jingling bangles, and her slender fingers profusely tattooed. Sometimes we think that, tattoo was there before. We actually know how Mbororo women actually they're very good in tattooing. Her adroitly knotted headscarf was usually perched on top of her head, making her geometrically concise braids form sleek horizontal ridges on the sides. She was a bit portlier and plumper than the usually svelte Mbororo girls, and was always part of the Mbororo dance group that would animate wherever there was an important ceremony at the village chief's palace or at the market square in Lo. However, unlike many of the fellow dancers, Mbororo dancers, who almost broke their back and sprained their waist to the frenzied tunes of the Maimuna Ndolo dance, she always danced with a certain majestic hesitation, as if to preserve the golden springs in her body, and as if she was conscious of the metabolic effect that her measured swerves had on some of the young boys in the audience. See her caught in the trop of drum, tippling from hide brimstone, down lineal veins to ancestral core, opening out in her supple tan limbs like fresh foliage in the sun. Tremulous beat with trenchants in the heart, a discant tingling quick to her fingertips and toes, virginal habit long too atrophied for pen or tongue. Akbar dancer. Okay, yeah, this is Fanta, unfortunately, and this is the sad story. Like, Fanta actually passed away. Yes, so she passed away in her prime, and yeah, that's one of the. These are things that as I try to connect with my roots, I get to to inquire about people, and that's one of the very uncanny experiences of homecoming. When you're going home, hoping to meet people after staying in the diaspora for years, hoping to meet people that with whom you had some experiences, and when you arrive, you are told so and so passed away. What can you do but to write down these memories and bring them back to life through narration? Now, the last that I would share with you this evening. Okay. Before I respond, I think Dr. Bless has a comment. Would be from the last chapter on Nanga Hills. Again. Okay. 172. Okay. Yes, I'll read from that page, and yeah, it's about a grandstand in Kambe, my hometown, or one of my hometowns. I don't know whether it's Ndu or Kambe, but administratively it should be Ndu. But then I always say Ndu is a hometown with which I crossed paths at dawn, because I never got to live there, and yeah, it remains some sort of myth in my childhood memories But the place that I really lived in is in Cambe. That's the place that really shaped my early adolescence, my early adolescence, and yeah, I have like my base of friendship is rather in Cambe, and I came to meet people from Ndu, maybe mates, friends much later in life. So I went home, and when I happened to have gone home 2014. And I was in Cambe on 20th May, and the memories really came flooding. So yeah, let me share two passages from my my re-encounter with Cambe. I begin with a quote: "I, for doubtless I am old, and think grey thought, for I am grey. After all the stormy changes, shall we find a changeless May?" Locksley Hall, 60 years after, by Lord Alfred Tennyson. You came back to this town on the morning of 20th May, about 20 years after you first stepped foot on its precincts. Visibly, it had not changed much. Even the bustling of the National Day celebrations could not placate that fact. Some new modern buildings had cropped up here and there. Internet cafes also popped up in strategic parts of the main street, a rather rare feature when you studied here as a secondary school student. But that was all. After witnessing the National Day festivities upon arrival, you woke up the following morning prematurely interrupted by the thumping drums of the Mboro dance groups. Your hotel room was a stone throw from the grandstand in a structure owned by late Pa Lufthansa. You later learned that he was given that nickname due to his trade deals in several German products that launched him onto the path of wealth. Now, this is when I begin to, to reflect on that space in Cambe. And one aspect that I want to share with you is the political memory, as I recall in the book about Njeba, the Njeba grandstand in particular. Yes, Prof Monkey, that is, I'm going to read from page 177. Yes, the second paragraph on page 177. Okay. The grandstand. It was here at this grandstand that in the mid-1990s, John Frunze, the charismatic leader of the main opposition party, the Social Democratic Front, used to arouse the crowd with his entrancing speeches, making you dream of something new to come, of a better country. Whenever the SDF rally fell during school hours, the school campus speedily vacated and there was nothing the principal could do. Frunze had a rather hypnotic effect on the crowd. It was believed he had magical powers. During the rally, he was usually introduced by Martin Yembe. Martin is of blessed memory. A young firebrand militant from Ndu. Yembe symbolized youthful leadership and charisma. The climax always came when Frunze, rolling his sleeves, raised his left hand in the air and rumbled, "SDF!" The crowd would answer, "Power! SDF! Power!" The third round of responses always required a full sentence. Power to the people and equal opportunities to all. That was when many merely hummed and rumbled along, like during the Lord's Prayer and the national anthem. The SDF was better known in Pidgin as Suffer Don't Finish, Suffering Has Ended. But for many people who cared less about socialism, but more about the end of suffering, the second meaning stood as the one and only meaning of the abbreviation, SDF, Suffer Don't Finish. Like Ayikwe Arma's Ma'anan, the voice of Ni John Fronzi always sought you out from the entire crowd and addressed you personally. Aye, man, let me wet it. Let it soak itself in love. Today things have gone inside me, and they have brought out what I have hidden in me. He brought them up. They were not new to me. Only I have never seen anything to go and fish them up like that. He was reading me. I know he was speaking to me. To you too. But did you hear him? How can a man born of a woman tell me my thoughts, even before I myself know them? I ask you. The beautiful ones are not yet born, by Ayikwe Arma. Now you notice that I do this a lot in the text, where I tell a story and then I connect with a passage in a book. Most authors do this. Is to say that we are also products of the books that we read, be they in primary school, secondary school, and the university. So I was trying to really build this bibliography, this books, some high moments of these books that we read into the story. Sometimes it is meant to interrupt the story. Sometimes it is meant to enhance the story, and so you find it a lot in the book. So, and I was also like building a community because I know that many of us identify with those books. One of the passages that feature, like the author that I make most recourse to is Lord Tennyson, because one of the authors, of the poets that for me, aptly expresses joy and bliss when need be, but also sadness and, disappointment, hopelessness. So I used him a lot. I used other authors, both African and non-African, just to capture these moments in life, these emotional moments. As you must have noticed, life is not only about the intellect, it's also about emotional intelligence. So when I was writing this book also, I was looking at my emotional biography. Things that moved me, things that gave me hope, things that dampened my hope. And so there's also this affective dimension of the book that I wanted to bring out. That's why I say the how was very important for me. It was not only about what I was writing, because what I was writing about, many of you know the story. So it was important to find the right rhythm, the right tone to capture these stories, to express sadness, to express bliss. And so the book really keeps you undulating between these two extremes. Some of you have told me, it's so hilarious, a book, it's so funny, so humorous. And then some others say, oh, la la, I feel the pain. It's so, how did you go through that? I say, well, this is what I wanted the book to really achieve, like the ambiguities of life, the ambivalence of human condition, the radio of life. So that's what I really wanted to. Okay, let me just read some few comments. I'm sure we've been rolling now for close to almost 1 hour 30 minutes. Your originality is superb. A perfect description of real places, people, names, and life experiences make it outstanding. A true reflection of our childhood. Thanks so much. I've gotten like fabulous messages from far and wide about people identifying with passages in the book, and people who have never been to Cameroon. A lot of Germans have bought it. Where the book has sold most, I would say Cameroon, of course, the USA, Canada, Germany, And thanks to our Amazon, our Amazon in Saudi Arabia, Bongbimi Jill, the book has also been quite present in that part of the world. And I'm really, really grateful to all of you, to everyone who, posted their tuning in, those who are still to procure their copies. Welcome. You can, if you are maybe in the West, or where you can have access to online purchase system, you can get the book on the website of the publisher, Spears Books. They are very efficient and fast in delivery. Those who are based in Cameroon, of course, you can have the book in Yaoundé from for Edison, who has a shop in École Normale. This information you find them, and I might still post it up again. So the book is available in Yaoundé for Edison. In Douala, you have Bongbimi Electa and Wanja Walters, the ambassador of Donga Mantum Artists in Douala. Very proactive team. And of course in Buea, by no other person than my right-hand woman, Jato, Passi. She's there and willing to deliver. Even she delivers even as wide as right down to Limbe. So those who are in that part of the world, please contact contact Passi. Meanwhile, in Bamenda, of course, a former SP, Njeba Festus, president of Wikuda, is there. And yes, so have I forgotten any other? So you can contact these people for copies, the level of Cameroon, and what else? So I'm just thankful to all of you for making this book like a boom. Some said it's one of the most publicized book in the Cameroonian, or at least as far as English-speaking Cameroon is concerned. But I also thank my younger sister Marina Desh, who has really marketed the book at the level of the CRTV. A lot of journalists at the CRTV have copies of this book, beginning with my own elder brother Wopsy Samson, and then other big names at the CRTV radio and television. Thanks to Marina Desh's network there. And the report also that was done on CRTV, it was really wonderful. Things just came together and gave the radio a big push. And of course, I remain thankful to my publisher, Spears Books, and the main man at Spears Books, Dr. Jude Fokwang, whose accompaniment doesn't just end when the book is out, but he accompanies you, the author, in publicity, in organizing events. And so the book has really benefited from the input of the publisher in terms of reaching the wider world. So it's been really a great ride, and I think that the journey of the radio is just beginning. Just beginning. So many more are going to buy their copies. The doctor, almost everyone in the village knew about Dr. Nfor, even never seen him. He was your community's own fallen. You are absolutely right. I mean, Dr. Nfor was really a fallen that we never got to know much about, because he left us quite at a young age. And but many Wimbom elites, many Donga Mantum elites actually know about him. And you won't imagine how people like His Excellency Jefferson Emmanuel welcomed me with open arms, Honorable Dr. Awudu Mbaya, because when I told them that I'm doing a documentary on late Dr. Nfor, they're like, wow, finally somebody has thought of doing something about the memory of this guy. And mind you, Dr. Nfor was the first Cameroonian. Now get this very rightly. He was the first Cameroonian to have a double degree, simultaneous double degree from the University of Yaoundé at a period when most English-speaking students had difficulties, in coping with life and studies in Yaoundé 1. which was officially bilingual, but we know the story. So most of them got disappointed. Others went to Nigeria and studied there. So in this documentary that I'm doing on Dr. Nfor, I reach out to people from that generation who knew him, who were part of his life story, right from JMBC or from the village. He was a classmate of my own father, and right up to to Ndu. From Ndu to he stayed for some time in Limbe and then in Yaoundé, in Douala. So Dr. Nfor was the first person to have a double degree from the University of Yaoundé one, the 70s, in bilingual letters and also in law. So this is a history maker, a record breaker, and yeah, most of his mates and friends were very happy to know that I'm doing something on his life. So this documentary will be out later this year. Please, when it's out, join me with the same energy, the same enthusiasm to promote it the same way you did for the radio and other stories. Yeah, what else? What else? I'm just reading your comments. Yeah, Marie, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Yeah, really, you did a great job in publicizing the book. My brother Kangong George, another ambassador of Wimbom music. Now, there's something I want to talk about maybe before we close. Music is very much part of that book, and I try to even theorize and conceptualize what music means to the memory. There are many of you here, when there's particular sound, if somebody plays a particular clip, like we identify with that, as an anchorage of where we're coming from, an anchorage of moments that we live together. So I in every passage in that book, you have a clip. We are of the Makoma generation. We are of the Hit Parade 1998. DJ Bobo. Corona, Rhythm of the Night. Coco Jambo, we had a way, what is love? So we are of that generation. So I wanted to really capture that moment. We are also of the Sonia Spence generation. We are also of the Zaiko and Ndombolo generation. So in every passage in that book, I try to weave in music. Music also as, as a melting pot of memories. And I say that there's nothing as sad and tragic as remembering a particular tune, a particular clip, and the person who used to dance with you is no more. That's a sad part of it. So yeah, really, 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 thanks so much, my brother Emma, my Niger brother, who asked me whether I've been to Nigeria. I've never been to Nigeria, unfortunately, but then through Chinua Achebe, through Shoyinka, through Chimamanda, we've all been to Nigeria. And that's why Nigerians and Cameroonians have almost the same kind of, sociocultural identifiers. We respond to the same humor. Nigerian film industry too has contributed to it. I talk about True Confession, Glamour Girls. Those are the few films that I've watched to the end. But yeah, so works of art actually strike our imagination and make us identify with spaces much more than even politics or news. So works of art have played a very important role in Pan-Africanism. Be it within the continent, but also between the continent and its diaspora. Thanks so much, my sister, Meline Mbungwe. Yeah, I can also see Tandap Charles is there. Yeah, thanks so much, bro. Thanks for your support always. So this was a book that also was kind of like, at every moment you are listening. So many people have confessed that when they are reading the book, they are also like, playing some of the music clips that I mentioned on YouTube. So listening with the music in the background, yeah, that's also an experience, a reading experience. How much time do we still have? So encourage your friends to get copies of the book. Those of you in the US, I don't know, wherever, yeah, buy a copy of the book and maybe give it as an Easter gift to a friend. Yeah. Now, what next for the radio? It's still traveling, and my hope is that it should be translated in 1 or 2 languages. And currently, I'm working with somebody from Brazil. We don't know what will come out of it yet, but it might end up being translated into Portuguese, because there's always that yearning, you know, from Latin America, from the African diaspora, to read narratives from our continent. And yeah, so who knows? Let's hope that that desire comes to fruition, and the book gets translated into Portuguese. Some have also encouraged me to translate it into German, French. I don't think it's, I mean, like, we should be bilingual. Yeah, supposedly bilingual. So I don't see it like, yeah, so most people should read it. Yeah, a lot of those who have bought the books are Francophones, of course, the bilingual ones, and maybe we should consider the translation, but it's not the immediate priority now for me. I'm working more on the Portuguese version at the moment. Okay, comments. Wow, comments have really flooded in. Wow, many of my friends from Nigeria. Yes, M Square for me, my brother and my first customer, the person who bought the very first copy of the radio. Wow, my brother Maina Watonya, wow, Mutonya, tuning in from Mexico, originally from Kenya. I can also see my elder bro Joe Bashi, and yeah, Ndi Naomi Nfor. I can see also, yeah, quite a lot of people. Wow, Bong, thanks a lot, Bong Jill, for that quote from the book, and for that long comment. Yes, you've been really my stronghold in terms of promoting this book and the previous book, of course, Letter from America. Nsamala wanted me to to establish a relationship between Letter from America and the radio. Yes, so as I said at the beginning, Letter from America it's about a child from Mbom, from Cameroon, going into the world and, you know, immersing himself in American history with all the tragedy of enslavement and all that. And while the author tries to connect, you know, the diasporic culture with home culture, and so the radio is, as I said, on the reverse side. So it's a homecoming, but home, when sometimes home might not be very familiar. Because one has been away for a long time, and when you go home, you also notice change. There's also the possibility of being misinterpreted. As I said, when I went home, people, you know, with a PhD, there was that sense of distancing, which I didn't appreciate. So I thought, no, let me rather write a book that would remind my friends of the collective conscience, the common trajectory that we have shared, you know, beyond titles, beyond academic trajectories and accolades. Let's look at ourselves. And I think that childhood memoirs also contribute to building solidarity amongst people. When I look at my friends, be they doctors, or I don't look at them in that. I look at where they're coming from and the moments that we share together, so that we can lift, you know, one another up, and not look down on those who people think have not been fortunate in life. But for who is fortunate in life, I mean, we don't know. Life is so uncertain, you know. So today might be your day. Some other person's star might start, you know, shining a bit much later. So this book also was for me to express humility, you know, and to pay tribute to pay tribute to parents, to friends, to mentors, teachers, lecturers, and yeah, and all. Yeah, so wow, Tamfo, Julius, yeah, Julius, my brother from Taku, also an elder brother in Nkambe days. I remember you very well because you always came to our quartier and we shared a lot of stories from Taku and dormitory stories too from Nanga Hills. My namesake and economal brother, Gilbert Enongene, is watching. In Economa, they used to refer to us as the two Gilberts. Now, the question by, I think, Bless, Ndi-Bless, I'm trying to get to your comments. Yes, let me check. Wow, so many comments and yeah, so many people tuning in that let me try and trace. I think that was a question of some sort, so let me see how I can find the Blaze. Okay. Fa, my brother. Tuning in, I think, from New Jersey. Thanks for coming on board, my brother. Part of the new diaspora that joined us in high school in Cambe. Yelena is there. Thanks so much, Yelena, for being part of this show. Yes, also Lingwe is there. Great. Okay, Prof. Monkey was asking me to read something. Okay. 236. Let me see what is that page. Maybe Prof wants me to make reference to something in that. 236, page 236. Okay, that is the Binjo. Yeah, I think I read it already, and then also maybe part of it, also like a PSS Nkambe, where I remember the footballers who thrilled us immensely in the late 90s. And yeah, I remember people like Shalom, Tangem Shalom, who tuned in recently, based in Douala. I remember Eric Cantona, my own namesake, Gilbert, Nkamvu Gilbert, alias Anelka. I remember, yeah, JPP, Alain Boxic, and the famous coach, Lawyer. Yeah. But also when I stepped foot on that ground, I could not but remember those who passed away, famous players who now lie under the earth, and yeah, we can only pay tribute to them. Yeah, people like Ernest, yeah, and yeah, difficult. Yeah, we've lost a lot of people, and so I zoom in on them there. Ernest is normal. That's Nke Ernest. You have Jato Ernest, Adamu Baba, Isabello, Tambang Vitalis, and Roland. Yeah, those are the great players from our area, from our community that are no more with us. And we can only say, may their souls rest in perfect peace. Yeah. Comfort. Thanks so much, my JCs. Tarlusi is there. The great journalist, and yeah, my dear classmate and friend Adela Esa Kena is there with us. So great Shang Maxwell is also there, and yeah, Jude, Jude, the main man at the SPS Books, is there with us, and Jude recently also published a wonderful research, and yeah, this new baby by this very I call him workaholic guy. you know, is into teaching, is into research, into publishing. And yeah, thanks so much, Jude, for being part of, you know, the journey of the region other stories. Thanks so much, Martha Mbuli. Yes, my new friends on social media. I hope we're going to meet sometime. Nelson Lunga, oh, watching from Bafia. Wow, this is great. I like the program. Thanks so much. Yeah, great. So I think we are moving towards the end. Okay, it's 8 minutes to 10, so maybe we just do 2 hours. So yes, so we have 8 minutes to go. If there's any comment you want to throw, Liz, please just share with us. Yeah, oh my God, Nku Clarin, latest bride in town, and a great force for the Dr. Comfort documentary that we are working on. Thanks so much, Clarin, for being on board. So I just want to really say thank you to all of you, some that I've only got to meet through the radio. And I must say that the radio has, you know, brought me close to a lot of people. I've got to know many people just through the radio. Some who have shared their testimonies with me after reading. I want to appreciate everyone who's part of my primary school experience, secondary school experience, chip site, DS site, my Nanga 95 friends, yeah, who have been very supportive, but also especially Nanga 98. They were the first group of people to really bring the radio to social media. They flooded every nooks and crannies of Facebook with images of the radio. So I wish to thank people like Ngala Busy Brain, of course, the gang leader, Thankful Bonisi Blessing. Yeah, they just created a WhatsApp group and began promoting the radio and just added me to the group. Of course, President Tangiri, yeah, Marilyn, of course, Jokfu Montana, the great filmmaker, of course, Jato, Jane Eyre, and yeah, have I left out anyone? Tarlo Sitangem also on board, and yeah, my junior man Kanjo from Nanga 98, who is now in Dubai with his friend Tarlo. So these are people who really took the radio to social media, and Ramsey Noir made the Ramsey Noir, and of course our journalist Josh Tando Tanko produced some of the best video promotions of the radio. Their videos were all over social media and very eloquently captured, and I'm really grateful. Of course, my brother, also Dr. Emak Akangwa from Nigeria, did a show on the radio and went ahead to interview me for a magazine in Nigeria. The radio has been reviewed also in Kenya on 2 occasions. We've published 2 or 3 reviews in Cameroon, and some are still underway. The radio was also launched by the Humanities Institute of the University of Cape Town, thanks to the efforts of Dr. Fu Divine, the director of that institute. And yeah, Letter from America has rather, you know, been more popular in the academic domain. So I've had to do like seminars with master students in a number of universities in the US, because Letter from America is more the scholarly book. It's more like history and all that, but it still has elements of this narrative, adventures. And so, yeah, but it's more on the side of research, even though still creative in a way. So I'm really grateful. We are left just with 3 minutes to go. So share this this live to those who maybe might have been away, might have not been a chance to be part of it, and promote the book in any useful way you can. Yeah. Invite friends to buy it online as well as on ground zero and ground one. One of the most heartwarming comments also from about the radio came from friends, Wimbum community in the diaspora, who said now they have a book to show to their kids, about life at home at a particular juncture, the moment or the period in which they grew up. Aspects of culture and popular culture. Yeah, I must say that the radio is on culture, but more on the side of popular culture, which means that I don't go on to lecture people about the tradition of Wimbum people, but I want to show rather the dilemmas of youth upbringing. Of course, in Wimbum communities, and which means you have elements of culture, tradition, but also I focus more on popular culture. Fashion, the music of the time, the religious atmosphere, of the time, and some of us New Deal children who have known only one head of state in their lifetime, and so you understand why we actually could not do that do this live on the 13th, because it was the birthday of the head of states. So maybe yeah, so well, okay, yeah, I think I've pinned, each time I lay my hands on the quote by Bless. Okay, I think I'm there now. Let me read and see what Bless was talking. Okay, Prof, maybe you will want to talk a little on what was peculiar about life in Kambe at the time. Okay, with characters like the Fresh Prince of Baraki, and how people took the drastic change of the atmosphere with the arrival of the infantry battalion, whose effects have been long-lasting. Yes, so that was a very interesting timeline in Kambe. The infantry arrived, so sooner than later we were, invaded, in quotes, by military men from all over Cameroon. And it changed the atmosphere dramatically. It really refashioned social life in Kambe. Those who thought that they were the movers and shakers of life had to give way to new power contenders. And it was a very dramatic period. And as I say, the camp was close to the campus. And it's not only a play of words, but that proximity was dramatic. It might have been maybe a redemptive experience for some, but I also take note of the incidents of early pregnancy and school dropout due to early girl-child pregnancy that characterized life in Kambe in those days. So it refashioned even the social parlance, with military men who in their majority were francophones and had very approximative knowledge of English. Some could just babble some few pidgin words. And and our people, our ladies who maybe had not taken their French lessons seriously now had to. The union was quite interesting. So we had new French idioms coming up. Of course, you can read them in the book, and but this was a dramatic period of dramatic time frame in Cambe. And yes, you talk also about Fresh Prince of Baraki, like the journalism club was really a nursing ground for talent, some of whom really became quite, the example of Tamfo Harrison from Tabikane, who being one of the correspondents of the journalism club in Nanga Hills, went ahead to become news presenter with Equinox TV, and has gathered numerous accolades, prizes, some of them given by CNN journalist Richard Quest and so on. It was important for me to really trace these trajectories. My brother Famatanto, a great hero of our age, I still remember when he would come to the General Assembly and talk about labor. We were wondering why somebody should be vying to be labor prefect when there were more juicy posts like SP boys, SP girls, sanitation, and all that. So yeah, but Famatanto, whom we know today, has come a long way. And for me, it was important to narrate this story. So it's not about me, but I wanted to tell a collective story from my own perspective. Of course, nobody is endowed enough to tell the collective story, but we can attempt, from our own perspectives, to capture certain moments that echo beyond the self. Yes. So thank you so much. Thank you to everyone, and grateful, humbled by the radio experience, and please keep sharing your testimonies, keep sharing news about the book, keep encouraging people to buy the book, and thanks a lot. I will be coming back to you with news of the documentary that stems from the chapter on the doctor. Thank you so much. It was my pleasure. It was a privilege for me to talk to you this evening. We are all busy, but we made time to be here to partake in this Facebook Live. I'm most grateful to you. I'm most beholden to each and everyone that has taken part in this show. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I will post information about the purchase possibilities, those whom you have to contact if you need copies, under this live video. Yeah, but thank you so much. And for those in Cameroon and Germany, good night. And for those in the US, your day is still long. Have a great day. And yeah, thanks a lot, and see you all. Bye-bye.